How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Fourth and Long podcast with your host, Alec Pecano, and co host, Bradley Walker. Before we get started, I have an announcement to make. I have put in uh, an attempt for media credentials for the Marshall Virginia Tech game next Saturday. And that's what the big announcement was that I put up on my YouTube community polls. But let's get started with the video. So the first thing we are going to go over tonight is some game previews, and the first one we're going to start with is Penn State, West Virginia, and I'll let you go first and give your keys to West Virginia upsetting Penn State.
So I went through and looked at what everyone out there thought it was, and I kind of based it down to three. The first one is going to be, can West Virginia defensive line put pressure on Penn State's offense? Obviously, we know, and they all say out there that defense wins championships. So it starts on the defensive line. Obviously, it's the trench guys. We all, as football fans, we all know the game is played within the trenches. So if West Virginia is going to upset Penn State, they're going to have to put pressure on the quarterback, get turnovers. You win the turnover battle. A lot of times you're going to win the football game. If West Virginia can control, the Mountaineers can control the defensive line and push them back, force some turnovers, they can definitely beat Penn State. The receiver that they're going to have to look out for is Drew Allard. He's the top receiver for Penn State. I'm sorry, my apologies. He's a running back. Did not read that correctly. They're going to have to contain him. Obviously, you want to make sure that you don't let him get outside and get big chunks of yards. And
you mean Allen and Singleton?
Correct. That would be correct. Yeah, maybe that's what I'm reading. Yes, I'm sorry. Correct. Yes. And the other one, Bud, that I have is the West Virginia running game getting big chunks against Penn State's front seven with the linebackers and their down linemen was the keys that I had for West Virginia to upset Penn State.
Okay, so let me give you my three keys to victory for West Virginia. One, I think they need to force Drew Allard to make bad throws, which would entail them to, of course, like you said, get pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're going to get a lot of pressure because Penn State, I think, is replacing a couple really good offensive linemen that went on to the NFL. So that's one. Two is limit the Penn State running game with Singleton and Allen. I think if they can do that, they'll be able to beat Penn State. And then number one, limit control. If you're West Virginia, and I think this is the biggest key, control time of possession.
There you go.
If you could keep Penn State under, I'm going to say 29 minutes of time of possession, I think you have a really good chance of winning.
I agree.
And then, so that's our preview of West Virginia, Penn State. And I think both of us are taking Penn State to win, if I remember correctly.
No, I took the Mountaineers in an upset.
So did I. I said West Virginia. I think we both, both said West Virginia.
Yeah. Yep. So we both took the Mountaineers. Yep.
So now we got Clemson. And what's your keys to Clemson pulling the upset against Georgia?
I have three here too. Again, and we were just talking about this with the Penn State West Virginia game, is don't turn the ball over. Because a team like Georgia is going to make you pay when you turn the ball over, whether it's a fumble, interception, whatever it is. Keep the turnovers to none or very minimal. Get Maffa on the run. Again, he rushed for 965 yards and 13 touchdowns last year. They've got to have him be a playmaker again, especially against a good Georgia defense. And it's the other thing is get to Carson Beck, get him on the ground, pressure him, make him turn the ball over, pressure Georgia, make them be, make I said, no turnovers, cause a bunch of turnovers on defense. Those are my keys.
Okay, I've got 3 keys as well for Clemson to pull the upset. Number 3, limit Georgia's passing game. We all know that Georgia, we know they have off the field issues with people not doing the smartest things, but they do produce really good wide receivers. And I think if Clemson wants to pull the upset, they need to hold Georgia's passing game under 250 yards.
It'll be hard to do.
Number 2, same thing I said with West Virginia. Control time of possession. If Clemson can get the ball and they can eke out 10 to 11 play drives that take up 6 or 7 minutes off the clock, I think they'll be in really good shape for an upset. And number 1, and this is the biggest key for me. Limit penalties. If you're Clemson, limit the dumb pre-snap penalties. And limit turnovers as well, and force turnovers on defense.
Yeah, I agree.
And we both think Georgia's going to win, but I think Clemson's going to keep it closer than people are thinking.
Right. Yep.
Now, let's give, I know we didn't write any keys down, but let's give a little preview for Oklahoma State and South Dakota State. And I'm going to go first. I think the way South Dakota State upsets Oklahoma State, because I've heard people say that that you could put Oklahoma State on upset alert because they have the tendency to stoop low and not take these FCS teams serious. So I think if South Dakota State can limit Ollie Gordon, which is not going to be an easy thing to do, I think they beat Oklahoma State. That's my one big key for South Dakota State to beat Oklahoma State. Let me know what you think.
Yeah, again, we talked to earlier in the other 2 games, and like you said, just limit mistakes. Don't take stupid penalties. Don't turn the ball over and control time of possession. If you can do that, anybody can win on any given Saturday. And if Oklahoma State allows that, because as they say, some people play down to their opponents. If they do that and South Dakota State ends up doing the upset, then we'll both be talking about that on Monday. But yeah, don't do anything stupid. Control the time of possession and don't turn the ball over, and they'll be able to beat Oklahoma State.
Okay, now Colorado State and Texas. I know we both said Texas. Well, no, I took Colorado State in the points.
You did.
And I think I don't think there's a blue cold day and that Colorado State pulls the upset, but you never know. Wacky things happen in college football.
That they do.
But I'm going to say this. The one way Colorado State can keep this game close and not lose by 50, limit penalties, like we've talked about with the other 3 games, and make Quinn Ewers make bad decisions. And pressure. That's the big key for me is pressure. If you get pressure on him, I know Texas has a somewhat good offensive line, but if you get pressure on him, he's not going to have enough time to get the ball out and throw.
Correct. Yeah, and that's
Easy,
Alec,
simple.
how you beat any good quarterback. Look at Tom Brady, for example. How did you beat Tom Brady? You put pressure on him and he folded. Get him up, knock him on his butt, as they say, knock a quarterback on his butt and get him stressed out. And if Colorado State can do that against yours, the Longhorns are going to have a long football game. Now, if they can't, different story.
Yeah. Miami and Florida. We talked about this in one of the previous episodes. How we both think Florida's going to pull the upset. Now we're going to give you a couple little talking points as to how that could actually happen. I think for Florida, like I said about West Virginia and Clemson, I think Florida needs to control time of possession. I know Montrell Johnson Jr. is not going to play, but I've watched some film on their backup running backs, and I think if they run the ball, that it's going to wear down Miami's defense, and they're going to have to. Miami's going to start stacking the box, and then Florida can just throw a long pass over the top of the defense, and same way with Florida's defense. If they get pressure on Cam Ward, I think they're in good shape. But the big thing with their defense is they need to limit the rushing yards of Damian Martinez.
Yeah, that was the Gators' problem a year ago. Is they gave up a lot of yards and a lot of points. Unlike the Florida defenses in the past that limited the mistakes and stuff like that. I think this game is not only important for both programs, as I heard locally on radio here in Tampa earlier this morning, that I think this is important for both coaches because Billy Napier, again, they have a nightmarish schedule in November, and Mario Cristobal is coming off of a season that he made poor decisions as far as having to hire someone to keep time of possession for him. As a head coach, you would think that you'd be able to do that, but he hired someone at the University of Miami to help him so that he doesn't end up doing what he did last year against, that's right, Georgia Tech, who just came off that big win over Florida State earlier last week. So it's interesting how that ended up being that they both lost to Georgia Tech. But yeah, I think Alex, right? Florida's got to control Miami's offense. If they can do that, they'll win. And again, I'm picking the Gators because they're at home in the Swamp, and it's hard place to win when you have 90,000 people cheering for you. So yeah.
And then the last one we're going to do is Notre Dame and A&M. Obviously, I think the only way Notre Dame pulls the upset here is if they get the ball first, they go down and score, and they stop A&M on defense, and then they get the ball and score again. I think that's the only way Notre Dame wins.
Yeah, again, another one of those road games that is in a tough at Kyle Field. It's going to be loud as it is at A&M. And the Aggies, they're coming out of their dog days, with Jimbo Fisher as their head coach. They're trying to turn the program back around. I think Alex, right, Notre Dame's going to have to keep their foot on the pedal, because if they let it off, the Aggies are going to take advantage and they're going to win on Saturday.
Now, let's get to our hot takes for the first week of the season. I will let you do yours first, and then I will chime in.
Okay. I'm going to start with 3 and go back to 1. We were just talking about Oklahoma State. One of my hot takes for them is they will beat Colorado State, and it will be on the way to them winning the Big 12 this year. They have the schedule enough to be able to do that. So I think Oklahoma State starts off with Colorado State and ends up winning the Big 12 this year. The next one is
Wait. You mean beating South Dakota State?
I'm sorry, I got it mixed up. South Dakota State, my bad. I got the wrong game. Sorry about that. As they start their way to a Big 12 championship. I hate to say this because it leaves a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, but are we going to expect anything different from Alabama? No. I don't think Alabama is just going to disappear because of Nick Saban being gone. I still think they'll be dominant. I don't know if they'll be as dominant as they were in the past, but look for them to get off to a good start. Hopefully they trip up in week 2 against the Bulls, but we'll see. We'll see how that ends up working out. But I see them still being, they're too good of a program to just go away. And you know what? The first one I have as a hot take is college football is popular, and it's going to be as popular as it was. And now with the 12-team playoff, it's going to be even better. So I think it's going to explode again. Those are my 3 hot takes for week 1.
My 3 hot takes. My number 3 hot take is Jordan McLeod throws for 340 yards and 4 touchdowns in week 1. My number 2 hot take, and I don't know if this is really a hot take because we've been told by everybody that this guy is going to be really good. He's a freshman at Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith. I think Jeremiah Smith goes for 100 yards in his first collegiate college football game. And then my number 1 hot take, and I think this is a piping hot take. Drew Aller throws 4 interceptions against West Virginia.
Let's hope so. If we both took the Mountaineers, that would be great. That would be great. Not for him, but for the people that picked the upset. Yes, that would be great.
And now we are going to go over our top 8 games for week 1. And Bradley, you can go first.
All right, let me pull the schedule up here real quick, and I'll give you my. Well, I'm going to start with the game that I'm going to be at on Saturday, USF Bethune-Cookman. I got to hear Byron Brown, our quarterback, on the radio this morning. He's looking forward to getting the season started. I guess that he broke most yards by a quarterback in a Bulls uniform last year. And he's got Sean Atkins back. They've got a lot of firepower on offense. I don't think they look ahead to Alabama, even though I know that's in week 2. And I know that they say these are trap games or what they call cupcake games. But I see USF going out and at least putting up 40 or 50 points on Bethune-Cookman. That's a definite the Florida-Miami game is another one. That's a close one to my heart, being that I'm a Gator fan along with a USF Bull. So the Gators need to get off to a good start. I think
It seems like my co-host is having a little technical issues. So we'll give him a second. Let me know in the comments down below of this video.
Oh,
you there,
sorry
Bradley?
about that, but yeah, I think I'm back. Sorry about that. Yeah, you know what? Here, let me try my phone. Sometimes my computer doesn't load properly, and then it ends up sucking my internet away. The Georgia Clemson game's another one that's on my list. Obviously, that one is big. I think it's bigger for, say, Clemson because of if they can somehow beat Georgia, that would be great. I'm going to take the Southern Utah game. I think that game is on tonight at 9 o'clock on ESPN Plus. I like the Utes. I think they're going to be a strong team this year. Let's see. Let's try to stay away from the games that we went through. I'm going to take, Ole Miss Furman. I'm an SEC guy. I think Ole Miss is going to have a very, very good year. Michigan is going to crush Fresno State in week 1 to get them off to a good start. The LSU USC game will be good. That's in Las Vegas. I'll pull for the Tigers on that one. So how many is that? Is that
Go Tigers. I had to do my best. Ed Orgeron.
That's okay. Is that 8, bud? Did I go through 8? I don't know how many I had there. 4,
yes,
5,
I think you did.
Okay.
My turn now. My top 8 games. I'm going to go from 8 to 1. Number 8 is a game that I believe is tonight. North Carolina, Minnesota. And I know I said it was one of my upsets. I'm still sticking to it. And I think it's going to be it's a Big Ten ACC game. I think it's going to be extremely competitive. My heart wants to say that Minnesota's going to end up winning, but I don't trust their quarterback. I don't trust I think it's Max Brosmer. I just don't trust him. I think I trust Mac Brown more than any other coach. Number 7, and I might get criticized for this. It is Colorado, North Dakota State. The reason it's at number 7 is I don't think it's going to be that much of a game. I think Colorado's going to. I do think North Dakota State hangs around for a little bit, but I think Colorado stomps them. Number 6, TCU Stanford. Now, this was another one of my upsets, but I think I think defense is going to be optional. It's going to be good old Big 12 ACC now. And like I said, defense is not going to be, there's not going to be defense. I think they may both put up 50 points. Number 5. We just previewed this game a minute ago. South Dakota State, Oklahoma State. Watch out for the FCS over FBS win. Maybe South Dakota State does it. We'll see. Number 4. Notre Dame, A&M. I think they made, and I'm going to say this, I think they made the right choice having game day in College Station. I know there was people out there saying, oh, game day should have been at Clemson and Georgia. I think they made the correct choice putting it at A&M Notre Dame. Because I think they think that that's going to be a better game than Georgia Clemson. So that's number 4. Number 3, Arizona State, Wyoming. And now we can say this about the Big 12, because there will be some Big 12 after dark. Things get wacky late at night, whether it be the Pac-12 or the Big 12. Weird things happen. Look at example last year, Stanford and Colorado. Colorado was up by over 20 points going into the fourth quarter. And I'm going to put it nicely for the Colorado fans, choked. They choked the lead away and lost the double overtime to Stanford. So number 2, and you're going to like this one, Miami and Florida. I think this is going to be a good old-fashioned, for a little bit, defensive battle because it's the first game of the season. Tackle might be optional for a little bit, but then these guys are going to remember, we don't want to give up 50 points, so we're going to start tackling. And then my number one game for week 1 is Penn State, West Virginia. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about some, and we don't have to rank them, but we're going to give, actually we will, but we'll rank them 1 to 10. 10 being that they're going to get fired within the next 2 weeks. 1 being they're safe for now. We're going to rank some head coaches that are on the hot seat. And the first one is, and I believe he's at, I want to say Southern Miss maybe, Sonny Cumbie. I'm giving it a 5.5 right now because the season's just about to start, and I don't know how good they're going to be. But if they're bad, I think he gets fired within the first couple weeks of the season.
USF goes there in week 3, so that would be great. But no, I agree. I think starting off the season, I would put him at a 5 out of 10, kind of in the middle, kind of on the fence. If they get off to a slow start, say they lose the first 2 games, maybe if they lose to USF, then that might be the axe to get him fired completely.
Okay, the next one is, and I thought this was a weird hire for Boise State, Spencer Danielson. I'm going to put it at a 2 right now, but if they struggle, I think he could easily get fired. And they go maybe after Mike Norvell if Mike Norvell leaves Florida State.
Yeah, being a new head coach, you got to say a 1 or a 2 because being that they're new, they have to build a program. You have all of the past coaches, recruits there. So, yeah, I'd be a 1 or a 2.
Ryan Walters at Purdue. I'm going to say it's a. I'm torn. I want to say 6, but at the same time, I know they're going through a rebuild, so I'm going to say 4.5.
Yeah, I'll agree with you, but I'd say 4.5 or 5. If the program's going through a rebuild, you're going to have to give the coach at least a year or 2 to get everything back up and back the way he wants it. So, yes.
Now, Dave Aranda at Baylor. I'll let you go first with this one.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but is he a new coach or has he been there for?
No, he's been at Baylor for a while.
I would say with him, if they get off because they're in the Big 12 again, if they're off to a slow start, I could say a 6 or a 7. He's got to be feeling the heat a little bit.
I'm going to say 9.
No, okay.
Because I think if they lose, I might even go 10. If they lose to Tarleton State, I think he gets fired.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if that happens, correct, then he would get fired.
What would be another one? I mean, we already did Sam Pittman, but why don't we just do him again? I'll say 6 right now, but if they get off to a slow start, then it's easy. And we'll do this every week. We have the podcast. We'll give you new coaches and their hot seat rating. But Pittman, like I said, I think it's a 6 right now, but it can easily, very, very easily become a 10.
Yeah, I agree, but he's another one that's been with Arkansas for a long time, and they're not, when the SEC was split in the West and East, they would compete, but they're not one of those teams that they have a win here or there that may shock you. But yes, I agree. I think 5 or 6 right now, but if they get off to a slow start, it'll be a 10 before you know it, he'll be gone.
And before we get to the next one, I've heard people say there's a chance that Arkansas might go 9-3 this year. I don't see it. I don't see it at all. And I want to know what those people are either drinking or what they're on, because Arkansas, there's no way they go 9-3 because they have to play. I'm pretty sure they play Texas, and if they play Texas, they're gonna get whooped.
Yeah,
I
want to
put
say
it nicely.
they play Texas and Texas A&M, if I'm not mistaken. I think they might play both of those teams this season.
Oh, they're definitely getting whooped by both.
Yeah.
They
play Georgia or Alabama. Yeah, there's a couple more losses to add to the list as well.
Unless they catch either one of those teams sleeping.
True.
Clark Lee Vanderbilt's the next one. I'm going to say right now, probably a 7, unfortunately.
Yeah, that Vandy's hard to pick because, again, it's a school that, it's one of the top medical schools in the country. They're more known for their basketball program than they are football. And, yes, they beat the Florida Gators last year for all the people out there that are, want to say something to me. But, yeah, the requirements there or what is, how many wins they get, it can't be that many. So, yeah, I would say a 7 as well.
Brett Venables at Oklahoma. I've heard people saying he's on the hot seat. Can you see that or no?
I would say no, because if Oklahoma comes into the SEC this year, and let's say they go 9-3 or even 8-4 in their first season, you can't let him go. They're in a new I think if anybody's on the hot seat, it's his former boss at USC. There's the guy that's on the hot seat because they're in the Big Ten now. They were in the Big Ten a year ago. I think if anybody's on a hot seat, who's the head coach at USC? The Trojans. Why can't I think
Lincoln
of his name?
Riley.
There you go. Thank you. He's the one, Bud, that I think out of the two of them would be on the hot seat more than Venables is, because Lincoln Riley's done nothing since he went to USC after leaving Oklahoma, and it was supposed to be the greatest thing. And Venables, I think, has done a better job. Or that's who they were together, right? Is that who they were coaching together before? Yeah, Lincoln Riley left. I think they left, but yeah,
no. Venables was at Clemson.
That's right. I'm sorry. That's right. I'm sorry. Yes. So I think Lincoln Riley's on more of a hot seat than Venables is. That's just my opinion.
What about a guy like, and this one just came to my head, Brett Bielema. I talked about him the previous episode. Where would you put his hot seat rating?
6 or 7.
I'm right there with you. I'm going to say like a 7 and 7.5. Now, let's give some dark horse coaches that may get fired at the end of the year if their team underperforms. I'm going to start with, and I know I'm going to get grief for this, Dabo Swinney at Clemson.
Well, but it comes down to sometimes it's good to get a new voice in the locker room, as they say. Sometimes it's that way. And if Clemson say they only win 6 games this year, they go 6-6. Yeah, I could see him being the alumni. They're not saying, we'll get somebody else in here. If somehow they change conferences at the end of the year, so they move from the ACC to the SEC with FSU or somebody else, that's fine too. But yeah, I agree. I think could be one of those dark horses at the end of the season that could be given the axe if Clemson, especially if now let's say on Saturday they just get steamrolled by Georgia. That might be the nail in the coffin for him too. See how they come out and play.
Another one, and I found this hiring a little weird. DeAndre Foster at UCLA. When he got hired there, it left me scratching my head. I'm like, I know you lost Chip Kelly, and it was a last ditch effort to get somebody, but could you not find a better coach than DeAndre Foster? He's never coached before. So I think he could be a dark horse to get fired.
Yeah, being that he's a first-year head coach, I doubt that. But, I mean, if they don't win a game, it's a possibility. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but like I said, that hire to me just didn't make it. It was a puzzling hire. There were still other guys out there that you could have tried to poach away from other teams. Like, you could have gone after Brian Hartline at Ohio State. You could have gone after Colin Klein, who's the offensive coordinator now at A&M.
Maybe did Deshaun is that his alma mater? Just off chance, did he go to UCLA?
Yes,
that's probably why. They probably brought in a guy that had been through the program. That's my guess, because you're right. You could have gone off and gotten anybody better than him that had coaching experience prior to. So, yeah, I agree with you on that one.
And they said, from what I read, not only did they say that he was an alumni, they said this was a last-ditch effort to keep the locker room together because they didn't want kids jumping in the portal.
Right.
Because they had already lost, I think, 2 QBs in the transfer portal before Chip Kelly left. And Ethan Garbers and somebody else. So I'll give you one in the ACC, and I'm surprised he was not fired this year after last season. Pat Narduzzi at Pitt. I think he's a dark horse to get fired.
Well, that's a program too that is up and down, and they can throw a surprise win in there. Go beat a Florida State, go beat a Clemson or whatever every once in a while. But yeah, he's one of those guys that if they don't get off to a good start or they struggle, I agree with you, but he could be a dark horse that could get fired at the end of the season.
And I'll give you 2 more. This guy's in the Big 12. And it's not the guy you're thinking of. It is not Satterfield, because we've already talked about him. I think that Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State might be a dark horse to get fired after the season.
Yeah, there's another program that, again, no one
since the whole Herm Edwards situation.
Right. Correct, because he was there. He was there before.
To me, I'm going to say this, and then you can continue with what you were saying. I think that started the downfall of Arizona State when Herm Edwards had all that trouble with. Well, it might have been the athletic department. It was somebody within the athletic department that he had issues with, and I think that's what started the demise of Arizona State.
No, yeah, I think you're right. I think it was either that or that maybe it was the athletic director. It was somebody within the program itself that didn't get along with Herm. And then, yeah, again, when you and I'm even going to say this for USF, when you come in and you have to clean up someone else's mess, with Jeff Scott leaving and Alex Golesh coming in, everyone thought when Golesh got hired that he was the second coming of Jeff Scott. It was the same style and everything else. I think, Summerfield's the same way, with Edwards. He's going to have to clean up a mess, and he may not get an opportunity to fully do that before he gets axed.
You mean Dillingham?
Dillingham, yeah.
You said Satterfield.
Did I?
But no, Satterfield's in the same situation. Because once Fickle left, that Cincinnati's gone downhill.
Oh, yes. Yep. They were so strong in the American, and then their first year in the Big 12, they They showed. They don't. There are sometimes when a team moves to a different conference, and you're like, "Yeah, you should have stayed put. You should have stayed put."
Yeah, they should have took USF.
Yes.
And I still say that to this day, and I've said that on Twitter before. I'm like, why did you take Cincinnati? You could have took USF and kept the Warren I-4 intact as a conference game.
Yep.
And then the last one is, and I highly doubt this is going to happen because he just had a successful first year at Coastal Carolina, but Tim Beck.
Yeah.
I had no idea he was at Coastal until I saw them in the bowl game, and I'm like, who's their head coach? And I looked it up. I'm like, no, that can't be. It can't be the former Ohio State offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I think his job is safe. He had a good first season with Coastal. I don't see that happening. And if he can get kids and recruit kids, and they can, even if they win 8-9 games and make a bowl game, his job is safe for a while.
And I'm gonna give you somebody this is way out in left field. But if their team struggles this year, I could maybe see this coach getting fired. It is not Leipold. I could see Leipold leaving Kansas and going somewhere else, but not getting fired. Sharon Moore at Michigan. I know he's in his first year, but if they struggle, I think he might get fired. Because I feel like he was the scapegoat since Harbaugh left. I don't think they actually wanted him to be the coach.
That's another one where I think that's a long stretch. He was the head coach for the big games last year for Michigan when they beat Ohio State. I don't think that's going to happen. Yes, I think Harbaugh did kind of leave him with a mess to clean up, and obviously they got scholarships taken away by the NCAA. But yeah, that's a long shot. I don't see that happening.
And their fans still want to whine.
Oh well, that's it. That's with every franchise or every program. If something goes
that gets
against
caught
them,
doing what they weren't supposed to do.
Correct. If something goes against them, they complain. But if it goes for them, they have no problem with it. And that's the way.
Perfect example. Dave Portnoy. I've seen videos over the last 2 weeks of him. He cannot keep Ohio State's name out of his mouth. That is every other word out of his mouth is about Ohio State and how our fan base is salty because they beat us the last 3 years, and he says they did it fair and square. And I don't know if you watched the Connor Stalions documentary on Netflix.
I have not, but I'll take a look. But I do.
I have no sympathy for the guy. All this time he was trying to lie and say he never bought tickets for any of those games for him or family. And they showed in the documentary that not only did he buy tickets for family members, he bought really good tickets for them on the sideline at like the 50-yard line. But he bought himself tickets and sat in the end zone. And had them scouting as well as him trying to take signs.
Yeah, steal signs. Yep.
And I don't have sympathy for people. And he lied straight through his teeth in the documentary about it.
Wow. I'll have to take a look.
And for people like that, I'm sorry. I have no sympathy for you. If you're going to lie like that, why can't just at least tell the truth or attempt to?
Well, that'll be the day when he's completely out of football. He'll tell you the truth. That'll be the way it is when he's completely out of football. And again, like I mentioned on our first time that did a show together, he is a high school football coach in Michigan. So A lot of people don't know that, but he is a high school football coach in Michigan.
It still blows my mind that he is a high school football coach in Michigan after he did all of this with the sign stealing. And so I don't get why people think that, oh, Michigan's still going to be, they're going to be a playoff team this year. The Big Ten's only getting 2 teams in the playoff, maybe 3. And it's not going to be Michigan, and it's not going to be Penn State. We talked about this on one of the previous episodes. I think it's Ohio State, Oregon, and then maybe USC if they figure out their defense.
Okay.
But that's how I see it. Where, and I want to ask you this, since you're a Gator fan, when do you think Lagway is going to get his first start?
Well, let's see. They got Miami. He, depending on how it goes against Miami, he may get his first start week 2 or week 3. I know, like I said, the meat of the schedule is in November, so they're going to have everything kind of finalized by then because they have a night now with Florida State losing to Georgia Tech. Maybe they won't be so hard at the end of the year, but to have to play Ole Miss and Alabama and Georgia, oof, that's daunting. That's daunting. And A&M as well. That's a daunting schedule to have to go through. I'm sorry, it's not Alabama, it's LSU. My apologies, it's LSU. But still, it's daunting to have to go through that. So I could see him starting in week 2 or 3, depending on what happens on Saturday against Miami.
Okay, but I think that's going to wrap it up tonight for us. We will see you again on Tuesday.
Sounds good.
See you on Tuesday. That'll wrap it up for Alec and Bradley. We will see you again Tuesday night at 7 p.m.
See you then.
See you then.